All right. Yeah, just wanted to welcome you all to our second sort of special careers guest speaker session as part of the Microsoft Work Experience and Skills program. Hopefully, you are having a fun time with your coding credential in the Prodigy Learning platform and learning lots. I see some schools are already requesting the intermediate credential because some have finished that beginner credential. So well done, team. And as we begin today, I do want to acknowledge that our nation's story began at the dawn of time, and that First Nations people always have and always will be the traditional custodians of this land. I want to acknowledge the Darug people, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I join you from today, and pay my respect to elders both past, present and emerging of the Darug Nation and all the nations you're joining from around the country today and perhaps watching later, and extend the respect to First Nations people with us present, as well as those watching later. So the stories and knowledge that we share collectively strengthen our collective learning experience. So Warami from the land of the Darug people, hello, and it's great to have you all with us today. Without further ado, I will hand over to Michelle, who is joining us from Perth and works for us on the Microsoft team as well. So I'll let Michelle sort of introduce herself and what she does. Turn my camera off and over to you, Michelle.
Hello, everyone. Oh, a little bit of an echo for me. Oh, no, that's okay. Good. Okay, so my name is Michelle Sandford. I am a developer engagement lead in the Azure team, and I am going to tell you a little bit about the different careers that you can follow in technology, because when I was your age, I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I found it super annoying when people would say, what are you going to do? Because I didn't know what all my choices were. And I would say, well, I want to work in an office somewhere, but I don't know what people do in offices. And yeah, it was, I don't know, the number of choices seemed to me like they were very restricted, and there must be a lot more out there. In technology, I found there really is. So I have a whole bunch of careers in tech that I'm going to tell you what those are a little bit, and know that there are more than that. And by the time you are ready to enter a career in tech, there will probably be like a million more, and some of these might have already expired, I guess. Okay, here we go. Oh, wait, hang on, where is my little video? Okie dokie. Well, that is just to remind you that if any of you were thinking that a career in tech would be boring, then you are really wrong, because I have been working in technology for more than 20 years, and I have never been bored a day in my life. It has been amazing. So, I'm not sure whether you recognize this boy because he is a grown-up now, but this is Justin Bieber. When he first started his career in singing. The reason I have him up is not because I'm going to talk about pop careers. I am going to talk about a young boy called Thomas Suarez. When Thomas was 7 years of age, he made his first app. Now, that app was called Bustin' Jeeber. So it was an app where you could, like a whack-a-mole game where you could hit Justin Bieber over the head with a hammer. It's a silly sounding game, but he made enough money with that game to buy his own Xbox. Can you imagine you're 7 years of age and you're already making your own money, and you can buy your own Xbox or whatever other stuff you want because that is your money that you have made. Because he did so well in that, he built 4 more apps, and he started his own company by the time he was 12. This is amazing to me because I remember being super eager to grow up so that I could own my own money, and so that I didn't have to rely on my parents for anything, and I could do what I wanted to do. And back when I was in school, that was not really a possibility. Just to put a little marker on how old I am, the internet did not exist back then. We had to learn all of our stuff from books. Can you imagine? Anyway, my point is, you can now. You can learn how to code already. You don't need to wait to be taught it in school. You can be doing that for yourselves using the power of the internet, using YouTube, using a lot of free online content, and you could be making your own money and starting your own careers even before you are even before you have fully left your parents' homes or grown up in the eyes of the world, I guess. When I was in uni, one of my roommates, he had his own company while we were still at uni, and he was able to, pay for his own university degree and support himself while he was there. So it's really freeing if you're able to do that. And today you can. So my question to you is, what will you do? Don't wait for other people to grant you permission. Of course, I'm not saying go off and do things without permission, but there's no need to hold yourself back. If you are bored with anything, or if you don't know what to do in life, you can investigate those things, and you can start to learn and start to grow and start to create and start to build. So what did I do? So when I left university, I started, I still didn't know what I wanted to do when I left university. And so I applied for a bunch of graduate roles at big companies. And I started in one of them, which was quite a flexible scheme. It let me try a lot of different things. And so I would say that, early on in my career, I still wasn't decided on what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to try different things until I found something I was good at. I was a service delivery manager for many years because I was very, very good at that. What you need to be a service delivery manager is you need to be someone who is good with people. You know how to listen to people, and you understand people. When they talk to you, you can figure out what it is that is hurting them. You can figure out what is a problem for them, and then you can find other people who can help solve that problem for your customer. So in Microsoft, I had a bunch of customers. I had a mix at first: small customers and big customers, government customers and commercial customers. And that was really fun because I had to find different ways to solve their problems. I myself was not solving their problems for them. It was more that I was connecting them to other people who could solve their problems. So engineers that would go in and help them build stuff or help them fix things that were broken and not working, or maybe someone who had more of a strategic mindset and was more architectural and could help them map out a whole environment for what they wanted to do. And the trick to being successful in the role was really being someone that your customer trusted, to always tell them the truth, to always be honest with them, and to always do whatever they could to help them. And this was pretty easy for me because I don't really see the point in lying to people or covering things up. And I do want to help people. And so it's a great role if you are interested in helping people and trying to find a way to solve their problems, even if you yourself are not the actual problem solver. When I joined Microsoft, there was another guy in the office who joined about a month before me, and he was a Premier Field Engineer. And so because we joined so close to the same time, we were best friends. Premier Field Engineer is a really cool job. These days they're calling it Customer Engineer, because we don't just have engineers working in the Premier Fields team, we have them working across our whole business. Computing engineers, I should say, have a really exciting time when we are not in a pandemic scenario. They get to fly all over the country. So like it's like the James Bond of the technology field. We will fly them in and they will rush into a customer and they help them build stuff and solve stuff. They are generally considered to be deep into technology. So they will pick a particular Microsoft product and they will focus on that one thing. So it might be Active Directory, which is a kind of in case any of you don't know, it's a kind of thing where all the logons, all the IDs are stored, and it grants permissions to people and allows them access to different systems and controls who can access what. So Active Directory is a really big one, or it might be security, or it might be Intune, which is something that controls all of your devices, so your phones and your laptops. So if you would lose your phone, for example, you could immediately report that, and centrally they would wipe the whole phone so that none of the data, none of the stuff that belonged to you would be available to the person that had stolen your phone. There's a whole bunch of products like that, but the engineers go really deep into them, and then they get to go into the customers and help them. Normally they are helping them for sort of about 3 days at a time, not massive long engagements. And so, see, they have a lot of variety in their life in that way, because they're only spending a few days with the customer and then they're moving on to another customer and doing something else. So it's always changing and it's always interesting and it's always a challenge. They teach stuff, so they have to be really good teachers. They have to really understand their product and explain it. So teaching, those workshops might be 3 days, but they might also be 5 days. So if it's a 5-day workshop, you have to be not just really deep on a product, but you would have to be really patient, because you are explaining something to a whole class, and by the end of those 5 days, some of them will be quite far ahead and other ones might not be as into it as the others. Well, I guess I don't need to explain that to you all, because you know how it is in your classes. But yeah, Premier Field Engineer, I have always thought, is the coolest of jobs. So Rusty, that was my best friend. After he was a Premier Field Engineer, he decided that he wanted to earn a lot more money, and so he thought he would like to go into the sales organization, because the sales organization has a more rapid promotion route, and there's also a potential to earn a lot more money, because what they what they earn is linked to what they do, in that if they help a customer use a lot more of the things that they have bought, then they will get a lot more money in their bonus. We don't have a structure anymore in our sales teams that rewards sellers for selling products to customers. We only reward them when the customers are using the product. So in this way, it means that you can't have those kind of salespeople that you used to have in the old days, where they'd go in, sell all sorts of stuff that people didn't need, and then run away. That's that's not how Microsoft does things. The sellers only get paid when the customer is using the thing and getting all of their money's worth. So nobody is wasting their money with us. What they buy, they use, and we will help them use it. An account technology strategist is kind of part of that process. So in each big account, there is going to be an account executive who is the relationship manager for the account and kind of in charge of it. And he or she will always have their account technology strategist. And their account technology strategist is the one that will help the customer map out how they're going to use all their technology, how it all fits together, how it's going to enable their workforce so that they can be more productive, so that they can be more flexible. At the moment, during the pandemic, one of the most dramatic things that happened was everyone started to work from home. And previously, a lot of traditional old organizations and a lot of governments, um, they were reluctant to let their staff work at home. But when we had the pandemic, then they had to let them all work at home. And so all of a sudden, something that they said was impossible happened, and everyone started working from home. The account technology strategist was a key part of helping organizations turn that all on and enable their people to work from anywhere. And so it'll be really good when people go back, because they don't need to go back to the office necessarily. They can do like we do at Microsoft, which is work from anywhere. So right now I am talking to you from my car and I am in the car park outside of the casino, because I am going to a board meeting directly after this call. And so, but it doesn't really matter to you where I am, because I have this nice Minecraft background, and and the laptop is connected via a hotspot, and I can use Teams, and so it's super cool. So a TSP is also in the sales team, and this is someone that tends to go deep on a technology as well. Not as deep as a field engineer, I would say, but they have to really understand the product. So what happens is the account technology strategist is very broad and will map out across the whole organization all of the technologies that they will use and how they will use them. But then if a customer says, well, I don't really understand, like, how are we using this particular thing, say Intune, in a hybrid environment, i.e. where we have got some people who are going to be working in the office, some people who are going to be working at home, some people who are going to be in different countries, some that are going to use iPads, some that are going to use laptops, some that are going to use PCs. How do we do that, and how do we set up the different policies to ensure that there is no security gaps? Then they would bring in a TSP who would explain to them how the technology would allow them to do all of the things that they need to do. Still at quite a high level, in that this is for the people who are planning. And then if you needed to have someone to talk to the actual implementers within your organization, then we'd probably get an engineer to talk to them. But yeah, these are pretty, they're salespeople, but they are deep on the technology. So you'd want to do that if you were like a good relationship person, but also you could understand how to communicate stuff with pictures, and you're able to sort of speak both languages, technical language and business language. So when I showed the Xbox video at the start, like you're looking at games there. Microsoft owns Xbox, and we have a lot of game studios that we also own. And like the music is part of the reason I love that video. It's really, it really brings the message to life. It really makes it more dramatic. It makes you feel that you're part of something and that you're building something. So audio and music and all of that are super important roles within the tech industry. And you do it all now from your laptop, as opposed to the old days where you'd had some decks. You probably haven't even seen those, like records, vinyls. Yeah, so this is a really cool role if you are interested in in audio and in music. There is room for you in the tech industry too, not just in games. There's all sorts. If you look at some of our commercials, there is always music and stuff. But games is a huge thing, and being part of the games industry, a lot of people start that as a side gig. So if you were building your own games, which, as I said at the start, you could be doing that now, building and selling your own games, there is not a huge amount of money in that when you are starting out. And so a lot of people will take the skills that they have as a games developer or a games designer, and they will apply those to other fields. So right now in Perth, we have a lot of resources industry companies, big companies like Rio Tinto, BHP, Fortescue Metals Group, Woodside. Those companies employ people with these kind of skills to create virtual worlds for people to train in. So, it would be much safer and much easier if you could do some of your training as a game in advance of when you actually have to experience those things in the field. And those kind of skills are really useful in big businesses to create that kind of environment. But I mean, the games industry itself is also super, super cool, and really fun to be part of and really creative. So yeah, that's a great thing. And yeah, artist as well is really key. What I've noticed when I go to games jams, which are sort of hackathons but for game development and design people, is that the creative artists, the people who can draw and paint and all of that, are in hot demand at games jams, because there's always a whole bunch of developers that turn up, and then they don't have anyone to make their game pop. You can't tell the story, you can't create a game unless you have some sort of artistic pictures and movie part to it. And so yeah, there is a really big demand for people who are artists within the technology industry. And here's the mixed reality thing. I've put evangelist, which would be someone that talks about the field and talks about the technology and gets people using it, building on it. They might describe how to do that at conferences, and teach people how to use it at meetup groups, write blogs on it. Like maybe they'll stream it on Twitch or have a YouTube channel where they teach people how to use the technology and how to do it. So that would be like an evangelist or advocate role. But there are plenty of other things within the mixed reality field that also need to be done as well. So actually the people building those worlds within there, the people designing the stories, the people designing the art, the people putting the music in there. There's, as I said, for the whole games industry, it's a massive field and it's growing. The technology has gotten more and more affordable, and so more and more people are starting to use it. And it's, by the time you all are coming out of your schools, if you go to universities, by the time you come out of universities, there will be a lot of roles in this field. Digital advisor. This is a real fun one. So this did not exist 8 years ago, I would say. I'm saying 8 years because I joined Microsoft 8.5 years ago, and there was no such role as digital advisor when I joined Microsoft. Um, so it appeared sometime in between. It's a role as well where you need to be able to talk to people, you need to understand, and you need to be able to sort of like bring their ideas out. So you have to be very creative. What you'll often see them doing is whiteboarding like they are there, or they might have like a bunch of post-it notes and be, you know, doing stuff around the room. And what they're trying to do is work with customers, bring out the stories of what they're experiencing within their businesses, what is holding them back, what are their blockers, what would they like to try and do if they set their mind free. Because I think probably one of the biggest problems in business is that there is like, people are defined by what they have always done, and they can't imagine doing things in a different way in their workplace. If you're a digital advisor, your role is to help them get out of that box, find new ways to do things, open their mind to the possibility that they might be able to completely change the way they work and the way they do things. And then that digital advisor will then connect them to people in the next steps who will help them build some of those solutions. Product manager as well is a thing that I think always existed outside of technology, but in the last few years there has been a whole new field sort of came up. So it started with Agile and Scrum, and then you started hearing people talk about DevOps, and DevOps came out of the factory floor, I guess. So, you know, where you have factories like Toyota, and you would be able to stand above the factory floor and look down and see everything moving, and that everything was absolutely flawless, and there was no point where, you know, something would happen and the whole thing would come to a stop. It would always be a continuous movement all the way through the process. And in DevOps, that's what you're looking for, that kind of flow, that kind of, there is no one person, there is no one thing that is a blocker to what you are trying to do. And so these product managers appeared, and what they would do is they would take one product within a company, so one thing that really mattered to a company, and they would be in charge of that, and they would gather the team around them to ensure that no matter what happened, that product would go to market and it would work, and it would work well. So they would have within the one team all of the people they needed. They would have a developer, a designer, an audio person, they would have a tester, they would have a business analyst, they would have like whatever all the whatever all the roles out there are that they would need to make that product successful, they would have them in their team, and they would, you know, be able to get stuff going immediately in these little, they would fix things in small bites rather than, you know, waiting for like 6 months in order to get something done. So it's like, that's a great role if you are the kind of person that can see the big picture and is always focused on moving something from here to completion, and you will, no matter what happens, get it done and ensure that you drag the right people in order to enable that. Cloud Solutions Architect also has only existed for about 5 years or so. They definitely did not have any of those when I joined Microsoft. And now there are more Cloud Solution Architects than any other role in my office in Perth. So those are deep technical people. Often they were engineers in the past, but they understand the architecture of a solution in the same way as a account technology strategist does, but much deeper. Initially, this was kind of like the role right at the top of the technical tree, kind of. in the, they needed to really understand all of the architecture, and they needed to go deep with it. But now, just recently in the last year, they have started introducing junior roles, so associate cloud solution architects. And those people can be like straight out of university, and they will have a senior CSA helping them and coaching them. And the first part of their job would be all around the learning. They would be shadowing a senior CSA, they would be working alongside them, they would be learning stuff, they would be getting coaching, they would be maybe delivering part of a workshop but not the whole thing, so that even junior people could be brought into this career really early on, which I think is super, super cool. This is Miri. She's a storyteller. Now, she actually worked in a customer engineering team, but it's not enough in technology to be able to do technical things. If you have a way to tell the stories, to explain what is happening, and to share the success of how things have worked and what they have achieved, then that is super, super useful. And so, yeah, Miri goes all over the world telling stories about technology and how it's working and how it's being used. And yeah, she's such a great inspiration. So if you like telling stories, if you like writing narrative, then there is a role for you in technology too. And of course, linking back to the games thing, without a narrative in those games, then yeah, they would also not be as interesting. I mean, I don't know, if you play Forza and those football games and those, no, not even the shooting games, but like Forza and the football games, there's no story. But in a lot of them, even the shooting games, there is a story involved. So yeah, there's a role for storytellers in tech as well. Oh, this is Donna Sarker. Donna is even more of a legend. So she was a principal engineer, which means not just was she a really excellent engineer, she was best in her field. Super, super, super deep technical. But she also has written books, so she is an author. My favorite, I have a workbook called Do the Thing, and it's a little workbook where she sort of encourages you to think about, what you're interested in doing, what you want to be, what you want to build, and, helping you sort of bring those ideas out of yourself and be all that you can be. She also recently launched a fashion line where she designs the clothes, and she has those made sustainably and fair trade with people in other countries where they get paid well for the work that they are doing, and they are beautiful, beautiful, like colorful things. She was in charge of the HoloLens when it first came out, and she was for a few years the chief Ninja Cat, which means she was in charge of Windows desktop deployment and all of that. So Donna has done everything and has really proved that you can do everything. You don't have to suppress your creative side if you are technical. You can combine those things. Now, I'm not saying you have to do everything in order to be successful, because Donna is just like such a wonderful inspiration to all of us. But yeah, don't feel like you need to just present one part of yourself. I think one of the things that makes Microsoft so exciting to me is that they are interested in all that you are, and all the different sides of your personality. The things that you bring to Microsoft are why they employ you. So yeah, don't hide any of it. If you feel like you are super introvert, there is a role for you in tech. If you feel like you're super extrovert, there is a role for you in tech. Or if you are anywhere in between, if you hate people sometimes and you love people other times, or really you don't want to do anything to do with people, you just want to work with tech, or you want to work with design or whatever, there is a role for you within tech, and you can be all that you are. This is Mark Rusinovich, who is also a total legend. So Mark has written a series of fictional books. They're sort of cyber security detective novels. So really great for if you're on holiday and you're looking for holiday reading. Unfortunately, they are very scary because all of the technology that he writes about is true. So he writes about these, about these things happening, and you're just like, that couldn't happen. They could never do that with my phone from a distance. That has already happened. So everything that he writes about is just really terrifying because it comes from a place of deep expertise. Before he was 30, Mark had written a series of tools called the WinSys internals tools, which kind of improve how your Windows operating system runs, how your desktop runs. And Microsoft bought that entire, oh, and there's some security in there as well. Microsoft bought that entire company from him before he was 30. So he became a multi-millionaire before he was 30. He'd also written, of course, a whole bunch of books around how to use those and how to optimize your PC, how to protect your PC, all of that. So already a technical writer and a successful businessman before he was 30. When Microsoft bought his company, they said, come on in and you can do whatever you want. So he was an engineer, but I forget what you call them. Well, he was an engineer, but he didn't have a team. So he could kind of do whatever he thought was interesting, do whatever he wanted. When you are, really, really good at what you do, then Microsoft is willing to just pay you and let you do really good stuff without giving you any direction around what you do. So he did that for a few years. Right now, he is the CTO of Azure, which means that the Azure data centers that are opening all over the world, those are like, he's the one that gets to decide how big they're going to be, where they're going to be, what technology we're going to put into them. He speaks at a lot of events, and whenever he's speaking at an event, there is always a queue outside of the room that if you didn't start queuing in the session before he started speaking, then you're not going to get into that session that day. And they don't record all of his sessions because sometimes he reveals top secret stuff that no one knows yet. But when he first started speaking, he was really pretty bad at it, and they gave him coaching so that he could improve his speaking skills. Because you shouldn't expect that when you start to do things you will immediately be brilliant at it, and if you are no good at doing something when you start it, that you should just give it up. So this is the same with coding. A lot of people try it and think, I don't get it, and they give it up. Don't think that. Remember, it took you more than a year to learn how to walk. So, and that is something that we do every day without thinking now. So everything that you do, everything that you can be good at, you will get better at it with practice. And Mark Rusinovich is a real key example of that. He often tells the same jokes that he was telling the year before, but the jokes get a little bit better each time as well. I always like to see how he has built on the joke that he told the previous time. But yeah, don't try stuff and give it up after one attempt. Try stuff and keep going. Oh, Tiger Woods is another example of that. Tiger Woods, best golfer in the world at some point. But he didn't get there by being talented at playing golf. His father had him in the garage hitting balls into a net every day after school until he couldn't lift his arms anymore. Actually, it sounds a little bit like child abuse, but he practiced every day until it hurt, and then he carried on, and he did that every day of his life until he became the best golfer in the world. Nobody is brilliant the first time they do stuff, and if they act like they are, they're probably faking it. So don't feel disheartened if you're not brilliant at stuff straight away. Okay, and then this is Satya, who is our CEO. Now, Satya is a really humble guy. He's really humble and sweet and quietly spoken. He was an engineer in our business before he became the CEO. Previously, there was Steve Ballmer, and Steve Ballmer was like a sales guy. And so he was loud and he was brash and he was kind of what people expect the front face of a company to be. But we didn't do so great under Steve Ballmer as we do today under Satya. And I think who he is, that humble, quiet guy who, thinks about things before he says things, who is gentle, who cares about people, who is, who puts people first. I think that has made us such a successful company today. When he came in, he looked at it with an engineering mindset and he said, we want to give back a lot of patents and we want to release a lot of the licenses we have so that we can make things better in the world. So, for example, we want to help cure cancer. And if we hold closed licenses on some of the discoveries that we've made, then we are going to slow down the whole cure for cancer thing because people aren't able to access all the information they need in order to progress in that research and move that forward. So he released a whole bunch of patents and licenses that meant that, other research organizations, other people could work on those things and move them forward. And I think there were probably a lot of people in the market that said, a company does not make money by giving away things for free. But he has definitely proven that that is not the case either. So Microsoft is now the largest contributor to the open source community in the world. Open source is code that people write for free and that anyone can access it and anyone can see it. And Microsoft employees are encouraged to contribute to that open source community. And we're the largest contributor to that in the world. So there we all are giving our time, or our Microsoft time, to free projects. And Microsoft makes so much more money today. I think we are not just a $1 billion business, but a double $1 billion business. No. Oh, is it trillion? No, sorry, it was trillion, isn't it? I don't know. Anyway, we are huge.
Oh. 1 trillion. It is.
1 trillion. No, 2 trillion, I think. Because yes, since we started giving away stuff, we are even bigger. And so yes, Satya has proven that whole are you aware of the idea of karma, in that the more what you put out into the universe, you will get back? And so you've put out bad things, then bad things will happen to you. But if you put out good things, then good things will happen to you. And so he has been putting out all of this goodness, and he has been encouraging us as a culture and an organization to put out all of that goodness too. And that has repaid itself commercially for the company, and repaid itself in terms of, how much the employees love the company and how much the outside world loves the company. So no one would have said that such a quiet and humble CEO would be the pathway to success previously, because there were a lot of very charismatic ones out there. But he has proven that, by being himself, by caring about people, by bringing his engineering background, by thinking about things, he could bring even more success to our business. So don't model yourself on other people if they are different to you, because you think that's where success comes from. Success comes from you bringing your own strengths to the game. I put developer last because this is kind of where I am now. So I started out with the service delivery manager thing being a large part of my life. It wasn't, I suppose it wasn't the start. I started traditionally, as everyone, well, as a lot of people in technology do, on the service desk, help desk, which is a very difficult way to start your career, but it's a very common way. And it gets you to learn a lot of things very quickly while people are shouting at you. But it means you can handle anything else in your career after that. I often said to people that if they'd had some work experience working at McDonald's or some other fast food industry, and they had survived that job uh, for more than 6 months, then they could definitely do well on service desk and they would definitely do well in tech. Because when you work in the fast food industry, you are often shouted at by people much stupider than you for a very low wage. And if you can survive that for 6 months, then you can definitely do anything. So it is a really good work experience to do. And it's a good thing to put on your CV when you want to work in a tech career. And so like I went up that route: service desk, on-site support, network, systems admin, all of those things. And I missed that when I was in service delivery management, because that was all mostly relationship role related. I missed the technical side, and I always wanted to get back to sort of like being real deep tech, which is a developer, which is writing the code. Now, today I am a developer engagement lead, which means I work with developers. And how that came about is because even though I was doing a job that I was good at, it wasn't where I wanted to be, but I kept trying to get other jobs and I didn't get them. I was always like in the last two in the interview loop, but they never gave me the job. And so I started to do the things that I love doing as well as my job. So I would go and teach women to code at coding camps. I would teach children and kids to code, things like Coder Dojo. I would submit to speak at conferences and I would talk about technology there. I would go to meetups and I would engage with the community. These are all activities that a advocate would do, or evangelist. But I was not an advocate or an evangelist in my day job. I was not paid to do that. But I was doing those things anyway. And eventually I was doing so many of those things and being so successful at them that they couldn't really deny it anymore. So they gave me this job of a developer engagement lead. And now I get to do all the things that I love to do, like talking to you all of the time. And they pay me to do it, and I don't have to do any other job. So yeah, I guess that's my strongest message to you all. Find out what it is that you love to do and do that regardless of whether someone is paying you for it or not. And eventually you will be so good at it that people will want to pay you to do it, that they will move you into that role anyway. And so that's really what we want in technology. We want people who are not happy, not settled to color inside the lines, to tick all the boxes and just do as they're told. We want people that think, we want people that want to build, we want people that want to bring all that they are to the role. And I have a little video to finish.
Today, right now.
So there we go. I do not know whether there are any questions.
Thanks, Michelle. I've got a bit of a cough as well. I've just asked in the chat if there's any questions. We'll also we've got a Microsoft team in the Department of Education's tenant where students will be asking questions as well. So if some come through there after the fact, I'll be sure to pass them on to you and then pass the answers back as well. So thank you so much. That has been incredible. I actually learned specifically what some of the roles at Microsoft are. I've been here for about 5 or 6 years. And I'm like, oh, that's the actual role of a product manager. Now I understand. So thank you. That's been very helpful.
Actually, I was just noticing your comment about the carbon negative by 2030. Carbon negative, not just within Microsoft, but across all our supply chains by 2030. And by 2050, we will have paid back all of the emissions that we put into the environment since its founding, including electrical.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I was actually having a conversation with my sons, who are probably a similar age to the students on the call I'm watching later. They're 17 and 18, and they were the ones that actually highlighted that, you know, businesses are probably going to do a better job than our governments of working towards a better world. So yeah, I think that sort of exemplifies that. So yeah, it was a cool conversation last night, actually. Yeah, great. So I guess I'll ask one question before we wrap up. You know, how would you change a thing in your journey to Microsoft?
I think that I have always grabbed opportunities as they came up in front of me during my whole career, and you know, that's part of what has made it so much fun. But I think when I was younger, I probably was a little bit restricted. I was kind of waiting for permission to, you know, to do things, to be things. And as I look back now, I realize that in fact, my greatest success has been where I didn't wait for that permission. I just did the things. And yeah, then people backed me. And so they tend to back you if you do stuff that you believe in and it's for good. And if you don't, you know, stretch yourself, if you don't try things, if you don't take risks, then you kind of are slowed down. You're following a path that repeats itself a lot on a loop, and you don't get to grow. So yeah, when I look for, should I do something, if I feel really scared at the idea of doing it, then I definitely do it, because I realize that's something that's going to make me grow.
Yeah, amazing. Excellent. Jumping. Actually, funnily enough, on the careers panel the other day, I think I asked everyone for, you know, 5 words or something about, I think maybe advice to your year 10 self or something like that. And one of my colleagues in the education team actually responded with about jumping into the deep end, getting uncomfortable in the deep end. And that's where the magic has always happened for her, even though it's been, you know, probably a little bit scary for her as well. So yeah, I think that resonates. Absolutely. Cool. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks to everyone who joined live and is watching later. Like I said, remember, if you've got any questions, pop them into the replies in Teams. And I can't finish my words today. And I'll be sure to get those questions back to Michelle, or really anyone on the Microsoft team. You know, if you've got a question, you know, for any of those roles that Michelle went through, we'll be sure to find someone that works in that role and ask them the question and get their answer back to you. So we'd love to hear those questions in replies. So thanks, everyone. Have yourselves a fabulous day. And again, Michelle, thank you so much.
Great to be here. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.